The Silencers. Throughout all their manipulations, stealth, and weapons, have won several realms throughout AcceleRacers. But there was one person, or should I say robot, that made their silencers as formidable as they are today. And that is because of Gig. This video will explain Gig and why he is the mastermind behind the silencers. If we take a look at every instance in which the silencers interact with our drivers, there's always something that has happened before to allow that silencer to come in. For one, in the Metro realm, Kurt's onboard camera gets knocked out, and coincidentally, as Tara was about to finish the realm, all of a sudden a silencer disguised as a drone comes behind Tara and hits them. Then the same silencer changes into battle spec and knocks out Tara's car, giving the silencers the win and creating unneeded tension between our drivers. In the Ice realm, Karma's onboard camera gets malfunctioned during the realm, and again, the same thing happens. A silencer is in front of Tara disguised as a drone, then changes into the chicane, knocking out Tara again. In both of these instances, a silencer is disguised as a drone to avoid the suspicion of being a third party, then changes into a friendly vehicle to lower Tara's guard, then they strike again, all being done when there is no onboard camera to prove anything, allowing the silencers to keep racing within the realms without suspicion. Then in the Neon Pipeline realm, Tara is again in first place, when a silencer disguised as a chicane spawns out of nowhere and goes in front of Tara. This time the silencers attack Tara because he has no communication with the other drivers. And again, for the third time, the silencers knock out Tara and take the win, and the Pipeline realm AcceleRacers. Finally, in the Junkyard realm, Kurt is in front of Tara, and again, a silencer is disguised as battle spec, fights with Kurt, with Tara luckily selecting the right silencer to kick off. Now if we take a look at the skills for the realms, once Kurt figures out the pathway out of the Metro realm and to the exit, the silencers coincidentally also know that the freeway is the exit, allowing them to execute their plans. Similarly, in the Neon Pipeline realm, as soon as Lani, Nolo, Karma, Taro, and Monkey figure out the main skill for their realm is drafting, you know who else knows that the skill is to draft? That's right, the silencers. Again, this happens in the Junkyard realm. Once Vert figures out the skill for the realm is hitting the apex, all of a sudden the silencers know that this is the skill for the realm. The same could be said for the Cosmic realm. Once Lani figures out the skill for the realm, you know who takes advantage of that? The silencers do by ganging up on RDR1 and using that skill against him. And finally, somehow somewhere the silencers got into the drone's headquarters, and the only way that would happen was if they snuck on board the human captured sweeper. By the way, I was wrong about how the silencers got to the drone's headquarters because the portals to the legs of the world race were closed when Galorium captured the Wheel of Power. Anyway, so what is the one common thing between all these instances? Gig. Gig is always there, Gig is always present, watching what's happening with the drivers and listening in on their comms. And since Gig works with the silencers, there's no doubt he's constantly relaying that information back to the silencers about when to strike and who to strike. Because Gig is always there to know if the driver's onboard cameras are out, and because Gig in reality is the first silencer to know about the skills for the realms once our drivers discover them. After Vert reveals a plan to take a sweeper into the drone's headquarters, you know who else is there? Gig. Gig is there, and so he formulates a plan and relays that information to the silencers so that they could sneak on board into the drone's headquarters and steal the Wheel of Power. If we take a look at Tesla, stating that the silencers stole his technology in a different light, maybe they did in fact stole that technology through Gig, as opposed to Tesla hiding that he stole it. Because if we take a look back at the World Race Interactive Garage, Tesla had implemented many what can be seen as prototype silencers technology, such as camouflage, jump jets, EMP blast, and nanotechnology, many of which the silencers have, but improved. It's not out of reason that the silencers, once stealing Tesla's prototype, can improve upon that, making their cars into what they are today, since they are backed by the government and have seemingly unlimited resources. One of my final points is Gig admits that he showed the silencers how to open the portals to the realms, and that he stole the AcceleRacers from Tesla. Finally, what happens to Vert once he escapes the Accelerdrome? He enters the silencer's headquarters. Because Vert has the Circle of Wisdom and the rest of the AcceleRacers, he informed Gig that he was entering the portal and that he had the AcceleRacers to the other drivers, and so Gig programmed that portal to make Vert exit into the silencer's headquarters. Because after all, he is still following his programming to help the silencers. He can only do what he was programmed to do. And it's also interesting to note that that programming follows the law of robots, where a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. A robot must obey orders given to it by human beings except where orders would conflict with the first law. A robot must protect its own existence as long as protection does not conflict with the first or second law. Gig, in accordance to all of these laws, sacrifices himself to protect every human being in the Accelerodrome. It's also why he kills another robot, a potential brother, in the first place. It's also interesting to note that Gig wanted to study the captured drone's brain. Maybe he sees a drone as himself, and therefore he calls it a brain because he can sympathize with the following programming. Gig also has human characteristics. Robots are meant to be efficient, but Gig shows subtle body movements and voice lines, which is why he could empathize with the drones. Or maybe he's just doing it so that the research also goes to the sciences instead. Research of the drones so they can potentially counteract them. But while Gig is a robot, he acts more human than Dr. Tesla, who is a human. What I'm trying to say and point out is that without Gig, the very foundation and driving of the sciences is missing. Without Gig, the sciences wouldn't have had the technology to race. Without Gig, the sciences wouldn't have been able to open the realms. Without Gig's information, tactics, and knowledge, the sciences would have been able to compete in the realms, much less win without that insider knowledge. But while may that be the case, he still acts human and in accordance to the robotic laws. Without Gig, there was no sciences. Without Gig, they wouldn't have won. They wouldn't have got the AcceleRacers, nor the Wheel of Power, nor the Circle of Wisdom. And that is why Gig is the mastermind behind the silencers.